In the news this week, bidding war, fears of rental prices rising and housing shortages when WA's border reopens.
The Russian invasion of Ukraine sparked demonstrations and gatherings in Perth as the violence continues. As WA's border opens, it is time to ask, is your workplace ready for the unknown variant X scenario? Plus, Dr. Andrew Miller's comment.
This is The Evening News with Ivan Loom and Maliva Thorne.
Good evening. A rental bidding war for WA homes is on the cards, with prices set to skyrocket when the state's border reopens. There are concerns that many will be priced out of their rental properties as mortgage brokers predict a 5 to 10% increase in rent, adding pressure to WA's already existing housing shortages. Nelson Liu with this exclusive report.
A WA housing industry in crisis, the state's rental homes in short supply and high in demand. But now with interstate and international travellers being let back into WA, it's about to get even harder to find one and pay for it.
We just might have some difficulties in finding the right place at the moment just because of there's so many competition out there.
WA will reopen its border next week, bringing with it a rise in travellers to the state, including international students and new workers. And their need for homes is expected to push up prices for rental properties. Depending
on the location, I reckon it can potentially go up by another 5 to 10%. They should expect another $25–50 of increase in rentals.
The demand is anticipated to add further pressure to the current low property supply.
Expect even more shortages because there's more demand of people looking for places to stay.
Real estate agents are worried bigger shortages will lead to a bidding war between new arrivals and locals.
When they come in, they know they cannot beat the local to get, they pay more.
While higher prices will force people out of rentals.
It's so sad. Yesterday I went to this motels, right, and see the whole family squeezed into this hotel room with parents, kids, in a small 2-bedroom. According to the operators, right, who are actually taking care of us, then he told me, right, is a family, and then because do you know the rental is crisis, that's why they can't find a place, that's why they stay there.
Losing a home because of skyrocketing costs is becoming a very real problem amid a housing shortage as WA prepares to reopen its borders. The opposition says only one person is to blame. They believe Premier Mark McGowan has left the rental housing supply in a poor state.
This is a complete failure of the McGowan Labor government.
Meanwhile, there are calls for solutions to the rental market.
We need to have more properties being built.
Nelson Liu, WAMN News.
The steps of Parliament saw the pain the Ukrainian people are experiencing as demonstrators protest against recent Russian aggression.
A small group of people gathered to condemn Putin's invasion and call attention to the war that is happening on a continent thousands of kilometres away from Perth. Both the Australian Prime Minister and the West Australian Premier have condemned Putin's actions.
My government stands with the Commonwealth Government in condemning the unprovoked and brutal aggression by the government of Russia towards the people and the country of Ukraine. But obviously we would work cooperatively with the Commonwealth on those matters. It's obviously a tragedy what's going on there. This unbridled and unprovoked aggression by Russia is like something you read from the 1930s or 1940s. It's unbelievable what they've done. Just unbelievable. A European ground war. I didn't think I'd see it in my lifetime.
The group of demonstrators, however, were calling for more than just words. They said that action needs to be taken to bring Ukrainians safely to Australia.
Well, we all are Ukrainians, or some of these people are married to Ukrainians or somehow related to Ukrainians, and we're just shocked to what is happening, what we've seen in the news, what is happening to our families back home, to our friends, to our parents, to my parents, my own parents are struggling and suffering there. So this has to stop. We need at least to bring awareness of people so they can show their support to Ukraine, maybe bring awareness of the government to do something.
You destroyed my soul, you destroyed soul of my friends who thinks exactly the same. You destroyed the whole country, beautiful country, Ukraine, and you destroyed Russia. I think in this century, we will not be forgiven by anyone.
The demonstrators also held another event at the Ukrainian Orthodox Church in Maylands on Saturday. As Western Australia prepares to reopen in less than 3 days, there are concerns over whether small businesses are ready for unknown mutations, the variant X scenario. With their livelihoods at stake, how should employees and employers prepare for possibly new variants, and what should the policies be? Liberal leader Dr. David Honey joined me exclusively this week. Dr. Honey, thanks for your time. How do we prepare small businesses for the unknown variant X scenario? Should there be a government policy for that?
Look, well, I think the government policy should be to have proper compensation that recognises the role that small business plays and the disproportionate burden that small business plays. I mean, let's be true, during, if you want to be sort of direct and look at the impact of this COVID pandemic, the largest impact has been actually on young people who've had their whole early lives disrupted, but also business, in particular small business. They're the ones that have carried the burden. For most people, their lives have gone on uninterrupted. So we need much more codified, proper level support, and that is adequate support for business when they're impacted by government restrictions, which are there. At the end of the day, those restrictions aren't there for the small businesses per se. Those restrictions are there for a greater public health good. It's fair that the public, through the government, shares the responsibility for compensating those businesses. How
prepared are we when it comes to the unknown variant?
Look, you can't know the unknown, Melly, so it's going to be something that government has to respond to flexibly as time goes on. We've always supported the government basing decisions on the sound medical advice from the Chief Health Officer and other medical experts, and we expect that the government will continue to do that. I will say one aspect of government reaction that has been substandard all the way through this whole pandemic, going back to February in 2020, has been the poor support for businesses financially. It's fair enough, and we accept that sometimes there'll have to be impacts on business for the overall greater public health good, but we're concerned that business is not compensated for the important role they play in supporting those mandates and changes.
When it comes to the advice on vaccine mandates, it must be based on science. So are the concerns being raised valid?
Melly, look, it's not clear that the mandates are all based on science. What we saw last Friday was that in the morning you could go to a bottle shop, but you had to show proof of double vaccination to actually go to a drive-through bottle shop. Yet after the Premier uttered a few words, all of a sudden, you weren't required to show proof of vaccination to go through a bottle shop. What was the medical advice that changed there? It's pretty clear the Premier just made that decision by himself.
David Honey, thanks for your time this week.
Thanks very much, Melly. Nice to talk.
This week on the WAMN Extra News Club, a special look into how the Russian invasion of Ukraine will impact Western Australia's food and resource prices, from grain to zinc mineral exports. The MP for Mining and Pastoral Regions, Neil Thompson, explains in detail about how the conflict will impact international relationships with WA, plus his thoughts on the 80th anniversary of the bombing of Broome.
I think the people of Broome really do understand the sense of vulnerability. Because it was in the north of Australia 80 years ago that we had the attack. It was a terrible attack, and civilians, personnel lost their lives here. We'll be commemorating that on Thursday, the 80th anniversary. And sadly, what we're seeing in Ukraine at the moment is just a repeat of the terrible tragedy that occurred 80 years ago in that part of the world as well. In the short term, there could be some outcomes that we're seeing. The grains market throughout the world is going to be affected, and that's likely to result in increased prices. We do sell zinc and copper, for example, major elements which are sold by Ukraine. We are a major gas producer. These are short-term changes that are likely to impact on our market in my region.
We have all that plus our continuing coverage on the Variant X series. You can subscribe to WAMN Extra News Club on the link in the description and support independent journalism.
Businesses affected by COVID-19 will be getting a financial boost, with the MCGOWAN government introducing a new assistance package, the Premier has revealed. Premier Mark McGowan announced the government will devote $67 million to the package for businesses adversely affected by increasing COVID cases and public health measures. 8 programs will be introduced under the package to support businesses, divided into the Small Business Rental Relief Package and Outdoor Dining and Entertainment Support Package. The government also announced new rules, with Level 1 restrictions to be implemented across the whole regional area from tomorrow. The restrictions include a 30-person limit to gatherings at homes, the 2 square metre rule at hospitality venues, and a maximum capacity of 500 people in nightclubs.
Yeah, I think it's all great. At the moment, we're trading okay, so it's okay. But I know that the next 6 to 8 to 10 weeks are going to be. I'm just bracing myself for a ride. So anything that can help us get through it is really welcomed.
There are reports stating that little over 12% of WA adult prisoners had received 3 COVID shots, and under 30% of children in prison had received either dose. Shadow Minister for Corrective Services Peter Collier criticised the McGowan government's low vaccination rates in WA prisons. Mr Collier also revealed that WA government were using a private medical provider to implement a mass vaccination program to vaccinate 18 prisons. There are also claims that many youth detainees in WA's juvenile detention centres are not vaccinated.
The government is instituting a private operator to have max vaccinations in our jails. They've just woken up to the fact that they've got 6,500 prisoners that are sitting there, and only 10% or 11% of them are fully vaccinated. Now, this is unacceptable.
The opposition has slammed the McGowan government's upgrades to the Armidale train line, with concerns about the impact on commuters. $2 billion worth of work was announced last week, and consequently the service is expected to be shut down for 18 months. The opposition says there's not enough consultation and works may not improve amenities. The opposition also says many questions around the upgrades remain, and Western Australians deserve appropriate answers.
We know that the transport infrastructure in that area is already under stress. Anybody that's driven up Albany Highway lately knows that it's not an ideal commuter route, and yet we're going to see traffic chaos over the next 18 months at least as this closure takes place.
The Western Australian Police Force celebrated the graduation of an incredibly diverse group of officers this week. 56 recruits graduated from the Gold and Blue squads. Their first duties will be dealing with the COVID-19 crisis. Though the group contained only 9 women as opposed to 47 men, the graduates were remarkably diverse in background.
So these officers will be part of the initial front line for when the borders are opening in a few days' time. They'll be checking people at the airport, just making sure that all the rules that apply, such as being vaccinated before you come in, they'll just be making sure that people are welcomed and kept safe.
Aged from 19 to 47 years old, they came from a variety of employment backgrounds, covering areas such as security, hospitality, healthcare and sales. One graduate had even served in the US Navy. 17 of the graduates were born overseas, while 9 came from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, and 10 spoke a second language.
Congratulations to all of the new graduates.
And good luck to them. You know, the most favourite moment I have, in fact the most important moment, is the police graduation where they throw the hats into the air.
It does look fun.
Brings back to the uni graduation days, you know. And now here's AMA-WA spokesman Dr. Andrew Miller with his weekly COVID-19 update and commentary.
Hi, thanks for your time. There's still time to be getting prepared for the further spread of Omicron variant of COVID in Western Australia. Thousands of cases over the last few days, and no doubt many more than that we're not finding through the testing as the rate of positive tests creeps up. One thing to remember is that the positive rat tests that are reported need to be confirmed with PCR. In these circumstances, a positive rat test is around 50-50 likely to be positive, and that's why we need to confirm it with a PCR. A properly conducted negative rat test at the moment is still probably about 98% accurate, giving reasonable security, so around 2 in 100 of those will miss if they're done right, but a wrongly performed rat test is of course no test at all. You can't draw any conclusion from it if the swab actually wasn't properly inserted into the nose and the sample taken. Now, having said all that, there's still time to be accessing more rat tests. Good that the government's given them away now. That's the way it always should be right across the country. 5 tests to each household. And one of the important things about this is that people who would not otherwise have got them to learn how to use them and perhaps have them to one side for the future should they feel sick. These people will be able to get a hold of them at no cost to themselves, just a little bit of administration through the website, and they'll be delivered to your home, 5 for each household. And then you have the opportunity to be familiar with the technology. Makes it much more likely that people will go on to use them and buy more for themselves if they need them later. So that's a very good move by the state government, in my view, and certainly unprecedented around the country. Again, I think that reflects the seriousness with which we're taking it in WA. And the other thing that you can still do is, of course, get higher quality masks. So if you move from a cloth mask to a surgical mask, that's an improvement. If you go from a surgical mask to a N95 or P2 type mask, KN95, those sort of masks will again be an improvement. Even if you haven't been fit tested for those masks, they're still snugger on the face. And if the game is to breathe in less unfiltered air from the potential space where someone has been breathing out COVID, then clearly the better masks you have and the less time you spend in there, the better. Go towards the al fresco where you possibly can. Shop outdoors where you possibly can. Avoid big crowds. Lifts are particularly dangerous. All of these things that we've learned over the last couple of years about the airborne spread of this disease can help you now to try not to be caught up in this first wave. It's not good to take the fatalistic view that, well, everybody's going to catch it one day, so I've got to stop worrying about it, because the landscape's changing so quickly with new treatments. Things are becoming available like Paxlovid, Sotrovimab, that sort of thing, but they're not widely available yet. So if you do get sick, you're going to have more options further down the track if this disease does pick on you out of all the others to get particularly unwell. So stay safe where you can, take it seriously still, and heart goes out to everybody who's got connections in Eastern Europe at the moment with those terrible events involving there. But you'll be pleased to know that I don't know anything about geopolitics, and I'll leave that to the experts. But stay safe, everybody, and just be humane. Thanks.
That's Dr. Andrew Miller. Here is Leo with what's coming up on 6 News tonight.
Thanks, guys. Today on 6 News, breaking news: conflict continues in Ukraine. We'll have the latest developments amid speculation online of a disinformation campaign with old and out-of-context videos supposedly of the conflict going viral. You can see full details on those stories and plenty more by heading to our YouTube channel. Just search 6 News Australia to find us, or our website, 6newsau.com. For now, though, guys, it's back to you.
Thanks, Leo, and that's our weekly news and current affairs. We have the latest news on our website, wmnews.com.au.
From Melly and myself, we wish you good health, good night, see you next Sunday.
Thanks for watching.